Getting comfortable around people takes time, especially when those people are imaginary. As storytellers, we put a lot of energy into getting our audience comfortable with our imaginary friends, and there's a lot of stress over making a character that resonates with an audience. But here's the thing: you can't rush a great relationship. That's why today we're going to take a look at Viktor and Jinx from Arcane, because while they've had opposite amounts of screen time throughout the show, they are the two characters I feel most comfortable with in the series. This is because time with a character doesn't lead to comfort. If you've ever spent 6 hours on a bicycle, your crotch knows exactly what I'm talking about. Conversely, if you've ever spent 5 seconds in a Lovesack beanbag, you know what love at first butt touch feels like. Comfort with a character comes down to compatibility. How quickly an audience member can see themselves or a loved one in your character, and how quickly those memory foam seats contour to your meatless cheeks. For me, Victor became relatable in Season 1 when he meets Singed. He's a lonely genius with a love for animals and a skin so pale it could blind a snowflake, which is actually my Tinder bio, and I thought, no. I felt like I could understand Victor better than any other character in the show. His motivations to do great things with the advent of Hextech weren't for ego, pride, or notoriety. Hell, they weren't even to ditch his crutches. They were to help all those people incapable of helping themselves. Conversely, I didn't feel much of anything towards Jinx besides my typical inexplicable attraction to Crazy, despite her being the primary focus of Season 1. It wasn't until her bug battle with Aisha in Season 2 when I finally felt a reason to care about Jinx's character beyond her Harley Quinn vibes. For once, Jinx wasn't battling crayon doodle demons in her own head. Instead, she was putting her monsters aside to protect a defenseless child. Why these brief events finally won me over is because one of the easiest ways to hotwire a human brain into liking someone is to show that this someone cares about another person. But there's a little caveat to this rule, because Vander, Vi, Jace, and Mel all care about other characters in the show. So why is it Victor's compassion for a lizard and Jinx's love for a mute orphan is what finally made me feel like I have a heart and that this show was finally worth some of the hype it receives? Well, it's probably because you're a narcissistic sociopath, Andrews. And that is part of it. But I would argue that the real reason has to do with these characters' relationships' simplicity. Vander and Silco love their surrogate daughters, and I understand the concept of paternal love, but I never experienced it. Why'd you leave me, Daddy? Vi loves and is protective of Powder. And yeah, I have a sibling, but Uncle Ben's mashed potatoes identifies me as a family of 4 to 6, not a woman, so I can't say I know what sisterly love feels like either. Jace and Mel love each other romantically, and if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that romantic love is a foreign emotion to me, especially when Jace's character revolves around making hammers while shirtless, and Mel's character is about as deep as that bike seat in your crotch after that 6-hour trek we discussed earlier. But bringing our focus back to Victor and Jinx, yes, they have complex relationships with Skye, Silco, Jace, and Vi, but it's the simplicity of loving an animal or a little girl that makes them universally relatable. Going one step further, it is a love or compassion for a living being that can do absolutely nothing for you that shows a deeper layer to both of these characters. Rio couldn't file Victor's taxes, make him dinner, or give him a place to live. Victor just cared about the creature, wanting her to live and to also be happy. Likewise, Aisha couldn't do much for Jinx that Jinx couldn't do for herself, but she did give Jinx an opportunity to love another person for no reason other than a desire to be there for someone in need. Now, why the hell do we care as writers? Well, let's rewind to last week's video. But Andrews, I didn't watch last week's video.
You sick monster!
Last week we talked about the complexity of Arcane's character webs, how each relationship within the show adds depth to the other characters, and how these relationships evolve as a character changes. If I remember, there might be a tag to that video around here somewhere. Anyway, with Rio and Aisha, the characters aren't really there to push back against our heroes, and they don't inherently scuttle them along forward either. They are, by all means, props. Objects that we as writers can use to show our audience something unique about our characters. Now, while I don't like calling Aisha a prop, considering she is one of my favorite characters in the show, was one of my favorite characters. Well, who knows? None of the important cast members seem capable of dying in Arcane. But anyway, her primary function is to humanize Jinx. That's it. Plain and simple. Some relationships in storytelling exist mainly as augmentations for the primary character, and there's nothing wrong with this. In my opinion, simplicity and subtlety in storytelling are the marks of a good storyteller. These are the same types of relationships which made Silco so interesting in Season 1. Not because he was a master manipulator, but because he showed genuine care and concern for a girl that was initially of no use to him, and eventually grew up to jeopardize everything he had ever worked to create. The takeaway here is to quit slapping your audience in the face with clunky character foils and complicated relationships. Instead, slap them in the face with something anyone can understand. True friends will fight for you, even when they know they'll lose. Going against what you know is right will haunt you forever. Bravery to do the right thing can be found in anyone, and that, no matter how broken we are, we can be a light for someone else. This is critical for emotional storytelling because when a character is relatable, their actions make more sense for your audience. Why did Victor leave Jace, start a cult, and become Jesus? The same reason he's always done anything. He wants to help people while avoiding violence, pain, and suffering. Why did Jinx finally leave her underground neon palace to save a bunch of strangers from a Lady Mike Tyson? Because she had a reason to fight for someone who needed her to be the best version of herself. Conversely, why does Jace care about leading Piltover? Mostly pride and low handshakes from Mel. Why does Vi do anything? Kinda for Jinx, kinda for Caitlyn, kinda because of guilt. Why does Mel exist? No, really, in Season 2, what is her purpose? She's chillin' in space prison, making her brother's head into wine or something. As storytellers, creating complex relationships between characters is bueno. It makes shows like Arcane, Game of Thrones, and The Sopranos possible. It creates the opportunity for a lot of emotional ups and downs, twists and turns, alliances, and betrayals. But who the hell cares about betrayals if you don't feel that much towards the characters? How can you even know if there's been a twist or turn when you weren't sure where the character was going to begin with? By giving Victor a life defining experience where he saw a lizard kept alive despite immense suffering, and by giving Jinx a life saving relationship with an orphan, the storytellers provide their characters with roots and a reason, i.e., a direction, in which to grow. These reasons give greater believability to character action, provide your story with a plot instead of a bunch of random action scenes, pretty as they are, and a character arc molded by a character's internal needs rather than heavily depending on what a character wants. They give the show a soul. The best part about these humanizing features is that you can add them to your story easier than Aisha can add a Hextech bullet to her magazine and send me back to therapy. Even if your story is mostly written, just look for character relationships that don't provide much utility to your hero and emphasize them. Show your audience that a character is compelled by more than ambition, ego, or pride, that they can strive to be better for someone else, someone who can do very little in return, because at the end of the day, heroes are the characters who do the right thing, protect the defenseless, and grow in order to save others, rather than to save themselves. Thank you guys for watching. Hit some buttons under the screen to support the channel and check out my book on Amazon. I actually used this humanizing strategy for one of the main characters completely on accident. Tune in next week for another Arcane video, and until then, keep telling the best stories possible. The end.